Do you want me to go out to Ma'am Leaders and start and post it again?
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. Hi, everybody. This is Zen Honeycutt from Moms Across America, and we are glad to have you watching this evening, and we're glad to have some moms and a grandma on the show with us tonight. We want to welcome Pam Larry, who is the chief rabble-rouser and instigator of Prop 37. And hi, Pam. Thank you so much for being on. And Beth Dalton from, is it North Carolina or South Carolina now?
Virginia.
Oh, Virginia, okay. Sorry. On the other side of the country, she's our Moms Across America Pinterest lady and social media guru. And Ann Temple from Wisconsin is our graphics lady and another great mom. So thanks so much for being on with us. We might have some other people pop on a little bit later. And if not, that's okay. If you want to ask questions below the video that's airing right now on momsacrossamerica.com, you can do that. And maybe, Beth, you can check over and see if there's some questions during the show and see if we can answer any questions. But today was a really important day of the American political process and what's in our food and our rights for health and freedom in America. And what happened today was expected, but still didn't make it any less painful or upsetting, right? So what happened was there was the DARK Act, which is called the Safe and Accurate Food Act, which was presented by Senator Pompeo and Butterfield. And what the act does, we actually call it the DARK Act because we call it the Denying Americans' Right to Know Act. And I'd love to have Pam just explain a little bit about the bill, and then we can talk a little bit about what happened during the hearing today. Could you explain the bill, Pam?
Sure. Well, basically, the Grocery Manufacturers Association is tired of all of us folks on the ground actually winning stuff. So they decided it was time to get a labeling bill they live with and to clothe it and make it seem like it was safe and accurate and affordable. But it is, in fact, none of those things. So what will it do? This H.R. 1599, which was voted on today by the House, will do the first thing it do is it will not allow us to have any labeling bills of their own. In other words, they would be preempted and come over a rate. The next thing that it will do is there are 5 counties in California and 2 counties in Oregon and I believe 1 in Washington where there are bans on growing genetically engineered crops. Farmers in those areas and the people around there decided they wanted to protect their organic farmers from contamination, so they voted in or enacted bans on growing genetically engineered crops in those counties. H.R. 1599 would preempt those and would not allow any more to happen either. So all that work and all that local local laws and local sovereignty would be thrown out the window in favor of biotech industries. It would also allow for genetically engineered ingredients to be called natural. It also creates this new way to label that would be through the USDA, and who knows what that would do. That would be the only way you could voluntarily label. By the way, this is only about voluntary labeling, not mandatory labeling, which is what we've had since like 2001. But it would create this new certification under the USDA, which would cost money, and who knows if they would even do any testing. Nobody knows what it'll be. And then it also creates provisions for the FDA and the way that they look at these things as safe or not safe. So I think that's pretty much all the horrific parts about it, as if there could be any more. But it's not a good bill. It's a lie. We have evidence of them calling people up and asking them personal questions. The Safe and Affordable Coalition, a volunteer in California received a phone call and was asked if she'd take a survey about GMOs, and told them personal things about her, and then 2 days later got an express package with pre-written letters to her local representative, Tony Cardenas, and stamped envelopes, and all she had to do was to sign them and send them in so that it looks like there was grassroots support for this. And we heard from him that they were getting a lot of those letters. So as Zen will tell you when she talks about what went on today, there's a lot of lies running around out there as usual, a lot of misrepresentations, a lot of confusion, and this is their MO. So that's the bill.
Thank you so much, Pam. Yeah, to add insult to injury, there's things that came into play during the hearing where people got up and spoke about the contamination, where the Native American tribal leaders have a ban on GMO planting. They want to protect their indigenous crops. And so we had a senator get up, and I don't have his name written right down. My fabulous notes that I wrote while I was watching the entire hearing, of course, disappeared, right? My computer shut down, and so I don't have it.
Jared Huffman?
Huffman, yes. Yeah, Jared Huffman got up, and he spoke on behalf of the tribal leaders and said we would like to add this amendment that will still protect them, and all of the amendments that were proposed were shot down. So this is just really an egregious act on behalf of the leaders that opposing this bill. They won't even protect the Native Americans. They won't protect the conventional or the American farmers through contamination. They won't protect the American people. And you know what makes some of us just crazy is that they're going to be able to label GMO food as natural. It's just there's nothing natural. Like DeFazio said, I don't know the last time when a flounder mated with a tomato, right? That I definitely would not call that natural. So it was really extraordinary to see the American government at work in this way, in such a controversial issue. What happened in the act is, I mean, in the debate. So this is the House, and just for have everybody, hi, welcome Amber and Nanette. Nanette from Washington, and Amber, where are you from again? Washington, right?
Yep. Washington,
right? Yes. Thank you so much for coming on. If you have questions or you want to add anything or jump in at any time here, we really appreciate it. So what happened in the hearing is that both sides get to debate what's happening. One side gets a few minutes, and another side gets a few minutes, and they use up the allotted amount of minutes, right? So they have to either yield back their time or they reserve the right to keep their time, and each side goes back and forth. So you hear from one side or the other. And each side lines up different senators from different places. And it's very interesting that they'll often have, say, a California senator that will say how great GMOs are, and then the opposite side will have a California senator that will say how we need labeling and it's about the right to know. And so that's how the process goes. And this is the House, which is dominated by the Republicans, and we all expected for it to pass because so many of our politicians are voting party line. They're not voting based on common sense and what matters to the people and protecting the people. They're voting by party line because, you know, that's how it works, right, Pam? That they are supported by big corporations, and that's just how it works. So they vote mostly by party line. So the next step is going to be going to the Senate after this. So this is not the be-all, end-all. I want everybody to know, just because it passed in the House, it's not law now. They're like, a lot of people are getting hysterical that this is law now. It's not a law yet. It has to go to the Senate, and then after the Senate, the president has to sign it, right? And he could sign it and make it law, or he could not sign it and it could still become law. Or if it's presented to him 10 days before, I don't know, I guess he's out of office or something, or a recess or whatever, then he could not sign it and it won't become law. So the timing in which it's presented to the president is also important. And they could also veto him. There's all kinds of things about that. We posted a video on our Facebook page on Moms Across America about how a bill becomes law, and it's extremely convoluted. So you might have to watch it a few times, but I suggest if you're, you know, just getting your feet wet in this, that you watch that. So what happened in the hearing was really incredible, because the Pompeo is the one who presented the bill. and Butterfield co-represented it. Pam, do you know what states they're from again now? Is it Alabama and Kansas? Just want people to...
Sorry, I was muted.
That's okay.
I believe so, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I believe it's Alabama and Kansas. I'm really sorry, everybody. I took great notes, and then my computer crashed. I had where everybody's states, where everybody was from, and all of that. But Pompeo and Butterfield were the main ones. But Rodney Davis, and I don't remember which state he's from, he was a younger senator who really came out swinging, just so aggressive about how wonderful GMOs are, and even said things like, if you want to protect climate change, you want GMOs, right? If you want to help climate change, you want GMOs. That it's better for the soil, it's, prevents drought resistance. They were talking about the vitamin A in rice. They were talking about all these benefits, and how that we're feeding the world, and how they increase greater yield and all of that. So Butterfield, Rodney Davis, Pompeo, Conaway, LaMalfa, and Dan Newhouse. Dan Newhouse is another senator that was in some of the ads in Washington or Oregon. I don't remember which one that was against it. So he's been, talking about how great GMOs are for a long time. And what was very interesting was that when the side got up in favor of GMOs, they never addressed what the opposition was saying as far as the health issues go. They didn't address it. And the opposition, the people who are against HR 1599, the people on our side, most of them didn't even really talk about the health issues. They just talked about the right to know. They said, this is not about health issues, especially McGovern from Massachusetts. He was very clear. So McGovern and DeFazio are the ones who spoke on our behalf with, against HR 5999. And McGovern said, listen, I eat GMOs, my family eats GMOs, but this is about our right to know. And that's all that this is about, and we need to have the right to know. And DeFazio, though, spoke a little bit more in depth. He was actually sarcastic sometimes. He's very passionate, and he spoke very clearly about how all these other countries have the right to know, 64 other countries, and how 90% of Americans, they kept saying over and over again, 90% of Americans want the right to know. McGovern said, he was quite cheeky, McGovern said, so how about this? How about we do something different? How about we actually listen to the American people and give them what they want? 90% of Americans want the right to know what's in their food. How about we just try that, maybe even surprise them? So that was like, what a concept. That was really great. And in the end, I know there's more details that'll come out around in the middle about different things that were said, but I love that McGovern in the end, when it unfortunately passed 250 to 150, I think so. Yes, I think it's 250 to 150. It sounds too even, but 250 to 150. In the end, immediately after it passed, McGovern got up and said, I move for an amendment to propose that this act, the name, be changed to Denying Americans Right to Know. And so he's like, and I asked the speaker for your support. So the speaker had to say, okay, let's have an amendment, and let's vote on it. For the amendments to change the name to the Denying Americans Right to Know. It'll be a 15-minute recess for the vote, and everybody had to stand around for another 15 minutes and vote on it. And of course, the yays were really loud, and then the nays were really loud in the end, and the speaker announced that the amendment didn't pass. But I just want to give big hugs out to McGovern and to DeFazio for speaking up to for the American people. And I'd love to know from all of you is there anybody else that watched it that's on with us today? Can you unmute yourself and can we talk about it a little bit?
Hi, this is Amber, and I was watching it intently over the last couple days, along with the Rules Committee, which just had my blood boiling the other day. So it was interesting. I think they got their point across. I think it's just very clear when you start looking at the map of who voted what and where and why, where the work we need to do is.
Where the work is that we need to do. That's a very good point. Yes, we have some work to do, and we have a lot of senators to call, and finding out whether or not they're undecided or what their vote is. That's a very good point. By the way, I just clarified with Pam too that as a nonprofit, we're not to speak for or against any political candidate, but none of the people that we're speaking about right now are actually political candidates. They're in office, so we can say whether or not we're happy about what they spoke about or not. So that's totally okay. Just wanted to let you know that. Anybody else? Beth, did you watch? You have something to say. Looks like to me.
No, I didn't watch the play-by-play after watching the Rules Committee just because I know that I've spoken to a couple of my people in I do South Carolina and Virginia, and just the mental fatigue and the emotional fatigue. Like, I really had to kind of just like concentrate on being on social media today and kind of going that way. I couldn't. It's just, I don't know. I'm just trying to stay positive, and I kind of knew the way it was going to swing today after watching that dog and pony 17-minute dog and pony show. So
yeah, good point. Well, you're expressing what a lot of people feel in America right now is why bother? It's all rigged anyway, right? They're all bought out, and there's a lot of disdain and resignation and doubt that's happening with the American people right now. And you know, and there's a good reason for that. We had the EcoWomb family tour. They tour America and they teach people about GMOs just this past week, and we showed the movie Bought. And Clint, the father, said, you know, there's evidence that shows when 100% of the American people want something, only 30% of the time it passes. And that's just really, really difficult news, you know, that your government is not doing what the American people ask. And so to me, though, as a mother, that just shows me that we need to be louder, we need to work harder, and we need to let them know that we're serious about it. And there needs to be a revolution of participation in the American political system. I don't know about you, but did any of you know who your representatives were before all this? You two of you knew? Raise your hand if you knew who your representative was before this. Okay, great. Okay, so 4 out of 6 of us. Okay, so that's pretty good. But I would venture to say that majority of American people don't know who their representatives are, and are not participating in politics. When you look at voter turnout, it's still pretty grim. So I think that you know, something that's positive that's going to come out of this is that people are going to participate with their in their local politics more and get more involved.
I'd like to say something. You know, it was a pretty partisan vote, but I am going to call upon us as a movement. I know that here in California, that the lobbyists that we used when we had our bill last year, from Environmental Working Group and Pesticide Action Network and a bunch of the other ones, they said they would not even go in and talk to Republicans. And I think that we have made this a pretty partisan issue on our side too, not just them. If Republicans aren't hearing from us and hearing from us regularly, the only people they hear from are the opposition, the Grocery Manufacturers Association, and then the fake letters that make it look like there's a grassroots movement in support of this. So while it is very disheartening and all sorts of stuff, I think we have to really look at the strategy that is being used, because the truth is, for instance, Maine is predominantly Republican on a state level, and they have a labeling law. Connecticut and Vermont both had bicameral and bipartisan support for their bills. They passed overwhelmingly. Massachusetts right now is getting very close, and they've got bipartisan support. So it isn't just a blind walking on the part of the Republicans. We have to really look at reaching across the aisle and not stopping making this a progressive Democratic movement, because it's killing us.
Yeah, I agree. Well, and the fact is that food it's not partisan. You know, everybody eats, and everybody gets sick. Cancer is not partisan. You know, autism, allergies, autoimmune issues. It doesn't matter what political issue you're from.
It isn't. We've made it that way. I mean, we kind of, you know, it's like one of the political strategies that they employ. Instead of, quote unquote, wasting their time on a Republican that they think is lost before they even get started, which is a mistake, you know, they'll just try and shore up the Democrats they have, and it's not enough. It's not enough, and too many Democrats are now, you know, somewhat in the middle and listen to the talking points by the opposition a lot, too much, I think. It's like, where have you been? Yeah. Anyway, just saying, we need to reach out to Republicans more, but that's on us.
Yes.
I completely agree with Pam. I reached out really hard to the district that I just left, which was Charleston District in South Carolina, and had my group, the GMO Warriors, hammering Mark Sanford hard. And as of yesterday afternoon, he was undecided, and he's Republican, and he voted no. So the two counties are closest to Charleston voted no. So we were really proud of that, and I think that kind of bolstered those folks, because they kind of feel like they did make an impact with him. And so I had them calling him today to thank him.
Great. That's awesome. Yes, thank you, Beth. That's a really good point, that thank yous are just as much as in order as calling them to ask them to vote, you know, a certain way or another, that we need to thank them as well. Yeah, thank you, Beth. What about you, Anne? I know you watched for a little while. Anne or Nanette, anything that you want to share about the Dark Act hearing?
I can't.
There you go. I could hear you.
Okay. I was watching at work today, so I was kind of off and on. But one thing I would like to know is, you know, these states that are, you know, going across party lines, and, you know, what are they doing to do this? And as far as your comment about 100% of the people not, you know, 100% don't want something, only 30% of it passes. We do need to have an uprising, and we need to figure out how to do this. And it's, you know, we're in a corporate oligarchy right now. That this is what's running the country. The people have nothing to do with it, and it's wrong. So I mean, is this, you know, one of the reasons that we want to support, you know, a certain candidate, which I won't mention his name so we don't get into trouble, but it was very, very frustrating, you know, and I just wanted to do something, and we need to figure out what to do. So, you know, just listening to Pompeo speak, I know if I'd had a blood pressure cuff on, my blood pressure just shot up. I mean, the guy is so good at what he does, and I hate him for it. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's never a good thing to see somebody just lying. And what's amazing is that I think he really believes it, and that's very disheartening, because it's really hard to change, you know, belief systems when they're so entrenched in it. He has so much riding on it. He has an entire career based on this now, pretty much. And
well, I read an article about the people like you know, Hugh Grant from Monsanto, and the guy, and who's the guy from Nestle, who's, you know, not caring, that they're all sociopaths. So us trying to appeal to their better sense and finding out where their moral compass is useless, because they don't have one. And
yeah.
So we have to figure out, you know, as frustrating as that is, we have to figure out another way to go. And I don't know what's the best way to do that. So.
Well, I have a lot of faith in the moms not buying it. Education, I think, is key. But we do need to speak to, as Pam said, the Republicans. We need to get in and have meetings with them And what some moms have talked about has worked when they were meeting. Yeah, 1 second, Annette. One group of grandmas went in with their pictures of their grandkids and showed pictures of their grandkids and asked for that representative or senator pictures of their grandkids, and then they could start talking about the future of their grandkids and what they wanted for them, and they could start talking about chemicals and safety and all of that. So I think we really need to get related to them, what matters to them, what's important to them, the future. And yes, we need to talk to Republicans as well, because that's the only way this is going to turn around. What about you, Nanette? Oh wait, you're muted. 1 second. I need to unmute you. Can you unmute yourself? I don't think I can do it right now. You just click on your picture. Can you hear me? Yep.
Okay. I watched the hearing before. I didn't watch today. It was enough for my blood pressure to go up just watching what you guys were posting. And I attended a girlfriend's memorial today, so it's been a double whammy of emotion day for me. So, but as far as I run traditionally, my family and my husband particularly run in kind of conservative circles. So when I decided I was going to get on this activist bandwagon a few years ago with 522, everyone thought I was nuts. But I have so many friends now on both sides of the aisle, and I find every day meeting Republicans that are just outraged, that they don't know anything about this. They need to be educated, and when they know, they want to change. And I'm working right now. Oops, sorry. Phone's ringing with a radio announcer up here that is really interested in this and didn't know a lot about it, and he's trying to get on board. And he actually was a really strong liberal in his radio audience up here in Seattle, and now he's a very strong conservative. So he's got he's got a huge audience of bipartisan people, and we need to educate. We just need to educate, like Pam said, and reach out to both sides of the aisle, because the people that I run in contact or have met just in my small community, they don't know anything about it, and the majority of them are Republicans. And it's crazy because most of my liberal friends are the people in the movement with me, the food movement with me, just because of the conservative circles that I used to run in. They're still all friends of mine where we don't talk politics, but and they're really, really good people, but they just don't know. They're clueless on what is going on with our broken food system and the dangers of what's in store for our future of our kids. So that's all I have to say. And as far as what I do know about what went on today, I'm so disheartened. Dan Newhouse is he was a thorn in our side up here, Amber knows, for 522. He's just an outright, and I hope I can say this, that he is a liar. I'll go on the record saying he's a liar, because he said that Washington State soundly rejected their labeling law. And I don't know if that was his exact quote, but I think it was in the hearing. Something similar to that. It was 51-49. It was the same as California. The GMA put, and Monsanto, $22 million to our $8 million for the campaign. They lied on TV without, they're being sued by, still our Attorney General has an active suit against them for campaign fraud. So none of that was brought up as a rebuttal to anything he was saying. I was so outraged that I just wanted someone on the opposing side to bring up these points when he was making it sound like Washington just blatantly rejected this, and it's just not the truth. Our election was bought, and it was bought because of the lies in the media, and the media was bought out by the GMA and Monsanto and the other chemical companies. So to me, somebody needs to be a stronger advocate in Congress for us. Like, it's great that we had DeFazio and McGovern and Pettigrew, or Pettit, I'm not sure of her name in Maine, Shelley. But we need stronger advocacy to people that are really going to speak out when people don't tell the truth and call them out on it. And I don't know how we can touch that. Maybe Pam knows.
I actually have to go.
Oh.
So anyway, I have to go, but I think it's just really, really important for us to realize that, yes, it's about talking to the Republican reps, but also your circles. And we've all got circles like that. Republicans are great folks. They're going to a Tea Party meeting. I took the Tea Party on as my personal project during Prop 37, and I had a great time with them. They're wonderful folks, and I think that if we really want to focus on changing this in our world and other stuff, we're going to have to forget about a whole lot of like social issue stuff that we may not agree on, and come together for the future of our health and the future of our planet and the future kids. So on that note, I'm going to take a run. Oh, and to say that sometimes it isn't comfortable, but I think that we create a lot more of that discomfort than actually has to be there.
Yes.
I've had, what? Because I think it's a fear, you know, because if you know, because a lot of progressive Democrats automatically think everybody who's a conservative thinks the Koch brothers walk on air, and that just isn't the case. You know, it just is not true. And in Prop 37, we had a lot of Republican volunteers, but like we didn't know it because we didn't care. We didn't ask. You know what I mean? We didn't care what anybody was, or you know, we all eat, and we were all just like on this path together. And I think that it would be really great for us to get back to that. And the onus is on us, I think, to reach out a little bit more and to be a little more inclusive, and also different cultures. But anyway, I got to run. But I think that it's not completely over yet, so start working on those senators. That's the big one. Thank you so much for all you do. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Pam. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Great, thank you. So yeah, we'll just continue the discussion just a little bit because there's a couple things that she wanted to mention. First of all, Pam was the one who started this whole movement with GMOs, you know, in a big way. Other states had tried, but she really got it going in a big way in California. She's been my hero and inspiration, and really admire her grace and, you know, even-keeled way to approach things. So really appreciate Pam taking a few minutes to be on with us. Yeah, there were a couple things I wanted to touch on that came up in the hearing, which the opposition completely ignored. You know, and one was what somebody just brought up was state rights. This is huge. I mean, 3 states have passed the GMO labeling in resounding ways, right? Like some unanimously, some 120 to 3, some 35 to 2 or whatever, right? Resounding numbers. I had those numbers written down. I have them now. But really had an overwhelming majority of their representatives vote for GMO labeling in their states. And this bill will annihilate their wishes. It will completely override those states, and it will not allow them to label GMOs. And that is a major issue, and I suspect there will be huge pushback on that. And usually the Republicans are the ones that are saying, wait a second, we don't want big government. We don't want you telling us, like in Arizona, what we should do with our immigration laws, right? We don't want you, the federal government, to tell Colorado or Washington whether or not we can have legal marijuana. We don't want, you know, usually the Republicans are the ones saying that the government should not be so big and should not be controlling the state laws. So that's something that they completely missed. Another one is that DeFazio pointed out that this is actually a red state issue. That, you know, the states that passed the GMO labeling, which they're, you know, obviously not as concerned about, tend to be a little bit more of blue states, more democratic. He said, but this issue is a red state issue because the overwhelming majority of states that depend upon agriculture are red states, you know, the Midwest, and they cannot export their crops without labeling them GMO. The 64 other countries around the world will not accept our exports unless they're labeled. So they are cutting themselves off from a huge market by not labeling them. And by having voluntary labeling, which is what this bill does, it doesn't set a national standard, it's just voluntary. By having voluntary labeling and everybody having different labels, it actually makes it more expensive and less likely that other countries will import our products. and frankly, less likely that we moms will buy them, right? If it doesn't say GMO on there, we're going to assume it's GMO, and we're not going to buy it. So if it doesn't say non-GMO, I mean, or organic. So the food manufacturers are really shooting themselves in the foot by not labeling, especially if it's not GMO, because we're just going to assume it's GMO, we're not going to buy it. So the whole labeling thing, and of course it doesn't cost more money. DeFazio was very clear. He said it didn't cost more money to have red food dye number 2, on the label. Mm-hmm. It doesn't cost more money to say that there was aspartame or anything like that in the label. It's just one of the ingredients. You just add it into the ingredients. So the opposition's just completely lying about the added costs, and they're completely lying that it is a national food standard. This is what I don't understand. How could something be considered a national standard if it's voluntary? That's like saying, okay, kids, we're going to develop a standard about curfew. So you can either come home at 11 o'clock at night or not come home at 11 o'clock at night. That's our standard around curfew, right? That's what they're saying. They're saying it's a voluntary thing. You can do it or not. It'll behoove you to do it, but it's not a regulatory issue. So that other one is just completely ridiculous. Yeah, and the labeling thing where it's just going to be GMOs you're going to be able to have natural on the label and call it have GMOs in the product and call it natural, which is the way it is now, though. They're able to do that right now. They just want to make it continue to be able to do that. They're afraid that they won't be able to do that, and so they're trying to change that around. So Amber saying, I want to know where the safety was, right? None of these actually addressed any safety issues of industrial ag, and it hurt the whole West Coast, right? And I think farm subsidies and the payments that go to DC really is the biggest problem to getting to change. She says, I was so shocked that they were incredibly out of touch, especially during the rules hearing. Nobody reads the food labels until there's an issue, and they have to. And where are these GMO-free Cheerios, right? One of them mentioned that sometimes GMO Cheerios labels their boxes GMO-free and sometimes they don't. And they're like, that's a perfect reason to have this bill passed because, it'll be a national standard. What do you mean national standard? It's already voluntary. It's been voluntary since 2001, and people are even more confused now. They don't know if there's GMOs in there or not. And that's the first question that everybody gets, right? When you talk to your friends about GMOs, they say, well, how do you know? What do you eat? They don't know what to eat because it's not labeled. They don't know if there's GMOs in there or not. So this whole thing is incredibly confusing. I do want to do a shout out to Rosa. I don't have her last name right now written down because my beautiful notes disappear. But Rosa from Connecticut, one of the senators, she's the one who spoke up for the natural amendment. There were 3 amendments that were proposed by 3 senators that spoke very eloquently. And Rosa for Connecticut spoke up on behalf of natural. I'm really proud of my home state, Connecticut. Now I live in California, but and then also Jared Huffman spoke up on behalf of the contamination law on behalf of the tribal leaders and their GMO ban. So we want to thank him as well. Okay, so thank you. Rosa Delario from Connecticut spoke up on behalf of not having GMOs labeled natural, and there were other senators too. Like she would yield to other senators. So there were other senators that got up and spoke. It was really great. Everybody spoke very eloquently about it. And so there were a lot of people on our side. Then also Pinigre, I think her name is Shelley Pinigre, spoke up on behalf of the state laws and had several people, somebody from, I believe, Maine, and she was from Maine, and somebody from Vermont, and I believe Connecticut got up and spoke on behalf of state laws. And so we had, it was very encouraging. Were you guys a little bit encouraged to see some senators speaking clearly and hitting on pretty much all the issues except for the health stuff, right? One was DeFazio spoke about glyphosate. Didn't he? I think it was DeFazio that said that glyphosate is recently been listed by the World Health Organization as a probable carcinogen, and that genetically engineered foods are primarily engineered to withstand this chemical. So there are increased residues of this chemical on GMOs, and we ought to be concerned about that, right? But it wasn't a major topic, and the opposite side definitely did not address that. Right. He also spoke about the salmon, right? And most fishermen should really, be all over that, especially in the Northwest. Yeah, Beth wants to know, like, what are the Republicans eating? They're eating a lot of GMOs, and a lot of Democrats are too. It's not partisan, but we need to educate McGovern to not eat GMOs. That would be a good thing. Beth, can you check on our website? I know this is airing and showing on our website. Are there any comments or questions below the video that we would like, people would like us to address? We really appreciate people that are taking the time, especially on the East Coast where it's a little bit later there at night, and people on the West Coast where it's probably dinner time for you, like it is for me, and the hubby is holding down the fort, and we're able to get together and beyond. But we appreciate everybody who's watching. If you have questions, please do let us know. And if you're inspired by what's going on, because here's the thing, frustration is the mother of invention. And some of you watching tonight may be like, you know what, I don't know about you, but I thought, like, I need to move to Washington. I need to be pounding the pavement. I need to be going to speak to my senators and my congressmen. But we can do that locally, okay? We can do it. Look, they are back. At certain times, you can call. I strongly urge you to go to contact your senator. It's just, if you just go to www.senate.gov and call this week and make an appointment with your senator before September. Now, there's going to be a break. There's going to be a summer break in August. I think it's for about 2 weeks. And then they'll be back in early September, and they'll be hitting the pavement, and all kinds of issues will come up. So you really need to call this week, because it'll probably take about a month to meet with them, to get an appointment. And it'll be on a Friday when they're back in their local areas. And they only do this, every other week or once a month or something like that. It's not very often that they're back in their hometown. So we need to call our senators and actually make an appointment to meet with them. And I would meet with the Republican senators first. But of course, again, it's not a bipartisan issue. Okay, so no comments or questions right now. But if you have any later and you're watching this, if you are inspired to do something, the first thing that I'd like to say about that is we love your suggestions and your inspirations. And my Orange County volunteer leader said that if you how did he word it? Something like, we have found that the person who comes up with the idea is usually the best person to champion it. So if you come up with a great idea, we would love you to take the reins, by the hand, put those reins in your hand and give it a yeehaw and just go for it. And we will happily spread the word about it. We will support you with connecting with your local leaders. I'm happy to say that we actually have over 722 volunteers and leaders in all 50 states. We have leaders in all 50 states now, and it's very, very exciting. Last week we reached almost 200,000 people on Facebook just in that 1 week, and we're reaching more and more people, and this is despite the fact that it appears that Facebook has been, really tinkering with the algorithms and not allowing us to reach as many people as we normally reach. So I would love for everybody who's watching this to go now to Facebook, to our Moms Across America site, and to click on, under where it says like, click on the like button and click on Get Notifications. Because many of you have liked Moms Across America, but you're not getting our notifications, our calls to actions, the very helpful phone numbers that are really easy for you to call, because you haven't clicked on Get Notifications. So please do that if you haven't done so yet, and ask your friends and family to do that as well, and we will really expand our reach. And also, whenever there's a post that you like, if you comment or share it, then comment, like, and share it, then you will help us reach another 1,000 people or so, or maybe even 10,000 people, because everybody who comments and shares on it then reaches all of your friends and family. So it's really important to do that, especially since the opposition is doing tricky things like clicking on it, reporting it as spam or something. Like they're just being really tricky about things like that. So we've been talking about the DARK Act, and I do want to mention something else that happened today, I got an email from another supporter saying that the Washington State University scientist Michelle McGuire, who's wife to Mark McGuire, who has Monsanto ties, has done a study on 41 women and their breast milk and urine and found absolutely no glyphosate whatsoever in the breast milk, and found very low levels, but not of concern, of glyphosate in their urine. And so they're saying, and this study was analyzed in a Monsanto lab, and they said that it was independently verified by another lab called Convents or something like that. I have to check. We'll be doing a response about this, but they're refusing to put out. Well, they're saying that there's no glyphosate in breast milk. However, a recent German study showed that there is glyphosate in breast milk. They tested 16 moms, and I forgot how many of them had glyphosate in their breast milk, but they had levels 2 to 4 times higher than what's allowed in the drinking water in Europe. And what was found in America was 1,600 times higher than what was allowed in Europe. We had 166 parts per billion in our found in the breast milk from a mom in Florida who ate conventional food. And in Europe, it was only 0.2 or 0.4 parts per billion, and the allowable level is 0.1. So we had parts per billion in Europe. So yeah, so we know though that there is glyphosate in breast milk. We know that the form of testing that we had commissioned at the time was not the best in the world, but it was the best possible. That's what was possible. The EPA was not protecting us. They were not doing glyphosate testing. The Monsanto had not done it. The food manufacturers that are using it, the 750 products that glyphosate is in, no one considered doing this kind of testing. So we stay-at-home moms with $1,200 and a couple of weeks did it and found it, and they can't tell us that it's not there. They're just lying, and we are going to have a formal response for them written up, but right now my response is lies. That's it. So we want to know what of course their methodology was and what their level of detectability was, because if their level of detectability was 200 or something, well then of course you didn't find glyphosate in breast milk. If your level of detectability has to be a reasonable level, and also who were the moms, right? What were they eating, and all of that sort of thing, and were the moms, was their breast milk actually correlate with their urine? Because we have information that it wasn't. So there's some more stuff that's going to come out. I'll be saying more about that, but just know that we're being attacked from all angles. Our credibility, just because they want to protect their profits. And the main thing that I'd like to say about that is look to the money. Look who is commissioning the studies and what they stand to benefit from it. Me as a mom, did I stand to benefit anything from that? No, I didn't. I'm not getting a salary from an organic company. None of the moms who donated their breast milk and spent $45 to FedEx it in, and time and energy to get it to the post office, they didn't benefit from that at all. Zero, nothing. But Monsanto stands to lose billions of dollars if they admit that there's glyphosate in breast milk and that there's a problem. And for them to say, the Washington State University to say that the EPA is going to actually consider this study in their assessment and their review for whether or not they're going to reapprove glyphosate is absolutely ridiculous, because it's only 41 people, and everybody knows that a scientific study, in the scientific community anyway, knows that it's got to be 200 in order to have it be scientifically sound. So there's a lot of really questionable things going on. There's no lab report published. There was no. She mentioned methods, and she only mentioned one method, and they don't mention the detectability levels. There's a lot of things going on here. So we're being attacked on all sides, but we have a lot of passionate moms, a lot of people who are not going to give up about this. We're going to talk to our senators. We're going to call. We're going to email. We're going to fax, and we're going to keep going. So does anybody else have anything that they want to say before we go off air? And then we have a little bit of private ranting we're going to do after we go off air.
Yeah.
Okay, that's Nanette.
We'll have a lot of that going on.
Yeah.
Right now in Washington, we are collecting signatures for I-735, which is Get Corporate Money Out of Politics. So 7 states have got this on the ballot or past the ballot. Maybe Amber knows. It's part of the Move to Amend nationwide movement. So if you're unfamiliar with that, you guys should go to Move to Amend. It's to move Citizens United, the 28th Amendment, and overturn it. And you cannot believe how easy it is to hand someone you can't hand them a pen quick enough for them to get to sign it. So it's not very hard to convince somebody, do you want to get corporate money out of politics, big money out of politics? And it's, where do I sign? So it's it's grassroots right now. We're out collecting signatures. I think we have maybe over 100,000. We need 320, but we got till the end of the year. So that's another citizens movement. If we can get the money out of politics, we can get the corporate money out of our government. It's going to be a huge battle, but it's one state at a time. And right now, it's been really effective. So there's also another site called Represent Us, and you can go on there and you can find out the action plan that they're doing, beyond labeling, beyond GMOs, to take back our government from corporate interests. So those are 2 really good actions that people can get involved in.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Nanette. That's
Welcome.
great. Really great sites. There is a lot going on. Amber mentioned that Monsanto is still trying to get into Switzerland. I'm glad to say that I'm going there for a GMO conference in August. So I will, and there'll be a lot of other scientists there, some that I met in China. So there's a really good crew that's going there to spread the word. And they're trying to get GMOs into Switzerland's school system as well. So I'll be speaking on behalf of that. And if anybody watching has a testimonial about your child getting better when you went organic, I will bring those with me. So I urge you to please go to momsacrossamerica.com, go to Action, and under Action there's Mom's Survey. And on the Mom's Survey you can fill that out, and in those questions you can put in a little bit of a testimonial if you want, or you can just send your testimonial through the contact us part where you can email us through the website. I apologize to people that it takes me a long time to get back to some people. I probably have about 10 different places where people are communicating with me, and sometimes it does take me a week or 2 to get back to people. So if it's urgent, I don't know, just keep trying. Try the Facebook page, message page, things like that. I don't like to give out my personal number too much. But there's other countries. Africa, they're trying really hard to get into, in many different places. China, of course, they're still working on it. But we are in communication with moms all around the world right now. We're working on a new petition. We've got some things going on. Cuba, we really hoped. And Ukraine, and all these different areas where they're working on it. We just have to get louder. We have to be more vocal about it, and create those personal connections. Like Pam was saying, get outside of our box. We've been posting on Facebook, and we'll continue to post on Facebook, but I invite every single one of us to do something different. Go to your church and ask, hey, can we show, Genetic Roulette, or can we show GMO OMG? That's a really good church family movie. Can we show this at the church on a, sometimes they have movies and stuff that they show on a Sunday or whatever. Can we have a speaker? I really invite everybody to do something different other than you've been doing. I want to commend Ann Temple, who's been putting on an organic harvest type festival, right, Ann? You've never done that before. Yeah. And she took on leadership. Other people dropped out. She's still doing it. We don't know how it's going to go, but she's doing something new that she's never done before. And when you expand yourself like that, Amber took on our Twitter, and Beth took on our Pinterest. I mean, when you take on a role, like Pam mentioned earlier, she took on the Tea Party, right? Adopt something. Go out there. If it's pets, go after pet food. If it's churches, go after whatever it is. take on an area and say, I'm going to make a difference in this area. You know, I'm so thrilled when our Cub Scout group had an all-organic pack meal when we went camping, and they asked me to talk about organic food beforehand, and I made it really simple and not scary. But it was, you know, little things like that are so exciting. And don't assume that people don't want you to talk about it. Like Pam said, we can make up stuff in our head sometimes that it's scary. But I was talking to a woman at a barbecue. I know some of you have heard this story before, but I was talking to a woman at a barbecue, and I was telling her about GMO because she mentioned her kid had behavioral issues. So I started talking about GMOs, and then eventually got into the infertility issues in the rats that became infertile. And I said, I was like, hang on, is this too much? You know, I know, like, we just met, and this is just a barbecue. She said, no, this is my kid you're talking about here. You've got to tell me. So we can't just assume that people don't want to know about this. You know, people want to know because they love someone who's sick or has behavioral issues. 57.7 million Americans have mental illness today. That's 1 out of 7. Everybody loves somebody that's depressed or bipolar or, you know, has something going on. So we need to get out there and to spread the word. So we're gonna stop the broadcast in a minute. Is there anybody else that wants to say something before we go out there? Not right now. Okay. Well, thank you to everybody who's watching. Thank you to everybody who made calls. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You know, don't assume that they weren't heard just because the vote went the way it's going. And don't assume that your voice won't be heard with the Senate, because we have a better chance in the Senate. And as long as we get outside of our box and we go to the Republicans and we really make connections, we talk to them about their kids, about the future, and also that we won't vote for people who don't protect us, right? I want to leave us with the Native Americans that they actually, it actually says in the Native American Museum in Washington, D.C., that to this day, the Native American tribal leaders are elected by the mothers of their tribe, and they continue to hold the power to remove a leader based on lack of performance. So we want to let our leaders know, if you're not performing, if you're not protecting our children and our families, we will do everything we can to remove you. And that's a promise. Just we need our leaders to protect us. So thank you to everybody. Take care. Thanks for coming. Thanks for watching.